What is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be talking a little bit about some conference realignment. Mostly what we're going to be talking about is going to be the Big 12. And the reason is I'm going to emphasize this again. Texas and Oklahoma headed to the SEC. That really does leave the remaining schools in the Big 12 kind of in a scramble. We've heard all kinds of rumors. We've seen tons and tons of people addressing the issue, really trying to fight through a lot of the information, combing through the information to see what is really going to happen. But it sounds like to me the Big 12 wants to remain the Big 12. They want to actually go out and potentially add schools. Now the question is Bowlesby going to be aggressive? He obviously is in charge of the Big 12. So is he going to be aggressive and go out and get some of these schools? Some of the schools we're going to be talking about are going to be housed in the AAC, which is the American Athletic Conference, and then obviously a few independents, potentially BYU being one of those. So how do they want to approach it? What do they have to offer? And vice versa. So I think this is a big conversation that needs to be had. Especially if the Big 12 wants to stay relevant. Now, I think that they do have some things that they could offer. They do have some situations going on with TV stuff, and I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to pay attention to, especially with the rumors going around with what happened with ESPN. I think that's significant to pay attention to, but I do think that that's going to be lurking there. And TV deals, and what I mean by that also is some of these schools will have the opportunity to play on a bigger platform. So that's going to bring in money for these schools, obviously. And then being a part of the Big 12, I think is going to bring in more money than maybe what they were getting somewhere else. So that's always something to consider. So I really kind of wanted to clarify what I meant by that. But I'm going to go ahead and jump over. My face will disappear, but I'm going to go through and kind of talk about some of the schools that have been rumored to be coming potentially to the Big 12. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this up. As you guys can see, this is the American Athletic Conference. This is through ESPN.com. I want to make sure that that is out there. But a lot of these schools could potentially be coming. And, there was a report through The Athletic that when this initial thing happened with the Big 12, that 12 schools were actually interested in joining and have reached out to the Big 12, at least of coming and being a part of the Big 12. So Cincinnati, obviously. And what you're seeing is it's based on college football standings. And I think that's significant because we have to understand college football is the driver of college sports. So you would be obtaining a current football program that is ranked 8th in the top 25. So I think that's significant. Cincinnati also provides some very competitive basketball programs as well. So that's something to consider. And I know when the initial realignments talks and really when we obtained TCU and even when we obtained West Virginia, Cincinnati was one of those schools that was potentially going to join the Big 12. Now, another rumor that's kind of been going around, and this is one that I would be really interested in obtaining, is going to be Houston. The reason is because that does, again, connect you with the state of Texas. Some people say that won't open any more platforms just because Houston is another Texas school, and we already have the likes of Texas Tech. We have TCU, but I still think that would be a great addition. The question is do those other Texas schools want Houston to be a part of it? Memphis, obviously, a decent, okay football program, not going to be over the top, not going to be super flashy, but they can also provide a basketball. And I think what you're going to see is it's going to be kind of a universal thing. One that I've seen for some people, but not everybody, is going to be SMU. Again, another Texas school. They've had some decent things going. They've definitely had some players come out of there to go to the NFL from a football standpoint, but SMU has kind of been on the bubble, I think. South Florida is one that I've heard. And then the one that I think wraps up this entire thing for the American Athletic is going to be UCF Knights. UCF, a great football. It would be amazing to see them actually put into a conference because we've seen them go and do some amazing things as a football program, but when they are truly challenged will they continue to have those undefeated seasons? And I think that's something we have to really kind of see and evaluate. So one that is currently in the FBS Independence is going to be BYU. And I think this one has been rumored the most. We've seen everyone cover BYU potentially coming to the Big 12. I think that's significant just because they have been pretty solid in football. They definitely provide, a very competitive, they just had Zach Wilson drafted to the New York Jets. So they really do have some good things with football, but they also have a pretty loyal fan base when it comes to the basketball program. And I do believe Jimmer Fredette went there, and they've really had some decent basketball. The final kind of group that I wanted to talk about is the Mountain West Conference. Now, we've heard some teams coming from the Mountain West. There's been rumors that Boise State would be one. I honestly, personally, would like to see Colorado State. I think that they definitely deserve to be a part of a big time conference. And I think if you were to add them to the Big 12, they would really be able to provide, and they would be able to get helped out. I think that's a big thing too, is adding them to a really big conference. So they'd be a part of the Power Five. That would be pretty incredible for sure. So I think those are the teams that I've heard the most. I have heard some sprinklings of like UNLV maybe. I've heard like Nevada possibly. But from most of the ones that I've seen floating through really the social media platforms, I kind of hit on. I think the biggest one so far has been BYU. And I really kind of wanted to cover some information that I heard from BYU. And this was actually through The Athletic. It says between 2015 and 2019, the median audience, Big 12 teams, and this is minus games involving Texas and Oklahoma, drew for 36-game broadcast on some of the major networks like ABC, Fox, or ESPN. That was 1.786 million viewers. So now we're going to take in comparison to BYU. And again, this is from The Athletic. BYU's numbers were comparable. The Cougars' median audience in 16-game broadcast on those channels was 1.64 million. For 104-game broadcast on ESPN2, ESPNU, Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, and the remaining Big 12 schools drew a median audience of 482,000. BYU drew a median audience of 682,000 from 20 broadcasts on those networks. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. You're talking about BYU, an independent school. And I think what's significant is if you were to add this, we used to have Colorado, so you would kind of be starting to head towards the West Coast. Colorado by no means is out in the West Coast, but that is probably the closest school we had to the West Coast. If you were to go and add a BYU, you're now, as a Big 12, starting to really kind of grab onto some of those, that fan base, that large fan base that could be potentially international based on the religion that they have there at BYU. I mean, that's a significant thing to think about when you're going to add, and that makes sense why some of these viewerships are up. There's a lot of people that root for BYU. It says what's more impressive, BYU drew better numbers on those traditionally less watched channels, despite 15 of those broadcasts kicking off at 10 p.m. Eastern time or later. None of the broadcasts involving Big 12 teams kicked off later than 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. In other words, adding BYU would allow the Big 12 to open a new TV window, which is kind of what I'm talking about a little bit as well. It says a possibility that provides greater value in the media rights negotiation, which is going to be a huge topic. There's a couple things that are so significant when you're talking about, college sports. That's going to be media rights, and that's going to be college football. Let's just be honest. It's all about money. When you dive in deep, it's about money and how much you make. And those are two things right there that I think stand out and are very significant. So I really kind of just wanted to get this out there. I really wanted to talk about this, break this thing down. And I'd definitely be interested to see what you guys think in the comments section for sure. And the reason is because we've been talking about this on a few videos that I posted. And I think this is important. Some people are arguing that some schools wouldn't be added just based on their education and how much money. Others are arguing that it really comes down to the educational aspect and how much money they draw from the educational standpoint. I really just think it's interesting. And this is going to be something that we're going to have to hold on tight for. It's like a roller coaster. I mean, this is truly a roller coaster. The ride is going to be rough. It's going to be up and down. There's going to be rumors. There's going to be all kinds of things swirling. And this is just going to be a fun time. I mean, I'm excited to see. My original take was I was hoping that we would kind of disperse and go our own ways, go to important, I guess other conferences, basically Pac-12, Big Ten, the ACC. I don't think anyone else from this conference would go to the SEC, but I figured that's what would happen. Now that I'm starting to hear more and more that the Big 12 is wanting to unite and potentially stay together, and try to forego and forge this thing ahead. And I think that's what's going to be pretty cool. The biggest question is, and I think that's something to think about, is do all the teams that are remaining want to stay? I think the initial shock and awe of Oklahoma and Texas leaving forced some of these schools to really seek out and see what was available. And if, with that being said, if they got denied or really kind of got told like, hey, we're not interested, did that really make this Big 12, all the athletic directors come together and kind of rally and like, hey, let's go out and get some teams, add them, and let's go compete? That's just something that I think is very interesting. So I do appreciate you guys checking out this video. Hit me in the comment section. Let me know. I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say, and I'll definitely be responding for sure. But I do appreciate you checking out the Beat of KC. As always, have a good day.